Welcome to my channel. World Scene News. Subscribe to my channel for news updates all around the world. When countries trade with each other, they face a big challenge: how to pay for goods and services across borders. Each nation has its own currency, but not all currencies are accepted everywhere. To solve this, the world relies on certain global currencies that act as a bridge between different economies. For decades, the US dollar has been the main language of international business. It's the currency most often used in global trade, from oil deals to airplane purchases, and even in settling debts between countries. Even countries that don't use the dollar at home, like Japan and Saudi Arabia, often rely on it to settle major trades. This means that a Japanese company buying oil from Saudi Arabia might pay in dollars, not yen or real. Using a common currency like the dollar makes global commerce much smoother. It reduces the hassle and cost of constantly converting between dozens of currencies and helps businesses know exactly what things cost. The dollar's dominance began after World War II, when the US emerged as the world's economic powerhouse. American factories were booming, and the US dollar was seen as stable and reliable compared to other currencies devastated by war. Central banks around the globe started holding large reserves of US dollars. These reserves acted as a safety net, allowing countries to trade and invest internationally with confidence. The more dollars they held, the more they could participate in the global economy. As the dollar became more widely used, its reputation grew. It became a symbol of trust and stability, and soon it was essential for international trade, investment, and even for saving wealth in uncertain times. This widespread use gave the United States unique influence over global finance. The US could use its currency as a tool, imposing sanctions or restricting access to dollars as a way to influence other countries' actions. But this power comes with risks. Heavy reliance on the dollar means that countries around the world are exposed to US policy decisions, interest rate changes, and even political shifts in Washington. A change in US policy can ripple across the globe, affecting economies far and wide. That's why some nations are now seeking alternatives. They're exploring the use of other major currencies, like the euro, the Japanese yen, or the Chinese yuan, to settle their international trades and diversify their reserves. This shift isn't about replacing the dollar overnight. Instead, it's about gaining more flexibility and control, so countries aren't as vulnerable to the decisions of a single nation. The ultimate goal is a more balanced global financial system, one where power and risk are shared among several major currencies, making international trade fairer and more stable for everyone involved. In 2025, Canada made headlines with a billion-dollar ship deal with China. The twist? Canada insisted on paying entirely in Chinese Yuan, not US dollars. This broke with decades of tradition, signaling a shift in Canada's approach to global trade. By using Yuan, Canada aimed to cut costs and currency risks, and strengthen direct ties with China. The deal became a symbol of a broader trend. Even close US allies are exploring alternatives to the dollar. It was more than a purchase. It was a statement about the future of global money. By 2025, global trade relationships were shifting fast. Canada's deep economic ties to the US, once a strength, now seemed risky amid rising US-China tensions. The trade war forced countries like Canada to rethink their strategies and seek greater independence. Canada responded by diversifying trade, building stronger links with Europe and Asia, especially China. The goal wasn't to abandon the US, but to reduce vulnerability to unpredictable policies. Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney called this shift a move from asset to liability. The Yuan ship deal was a direct result, a practical step toward economic autonomy. Canada was asserting itself in a new, multipolar world. In the early months of 2025, the world witnessed a dramatic escalation in global trade tensions, led by a surge in US-driven protectionist policies. Headlines blared with news of sweeping new measures, and the atmosphere in financial centers grew tense as businesses scrambled to assess the impact. The international community watched closely, aware that these moves could reshape the global economic landscape for years to come. the United States imposed a fresh round of tariffs, not only targeting Chinese goods but also, in a surprising twist, slapping new duties on imports from its closest trading partners, Canada and Mexico. This unexpected expansion of tariffs sent shockwaves through North American trade networks, raising concerns about the future of cross-border commerce. The immediate effect was a severe disruption to North American supply chains. Trucks lined up at border crossings, warehouses faced mounting delays, and businesses struggled to keep shelves stocked. In response, both Canada and Mexico felt compelled to retaliate, introducing their own tariffs on American goods in an effort to protect their economies and assert their independence. Meanwhile, China chose a different path. Rather than matching tariffs tit for tat, Chinese policymakers allowed the yuan to weaken, making Chinese exports more competitive on the world stage and effectively offsetting the impact of U.S. duties. This strategic currency adjustment sent a clear message to global markets. By leveraging its currency, China demonstrated not only economic resilience, but also a sophisticated understanding of global finance. Business leaders in Shanghai and Beijing projected confidence, signaling that China was prepared to weather the storm and adapt to new challenges. As the trade war escalated, countries around the world began to question their reliance on the U.S. dollar-dominated system. International finance meetings buzzed with talk of alternatives, and the search for new ways to settle trade intensified, hinting at a possible shift in the global economic order. For Canada, the situation was a stark wake-up call. Business leaders and policymakers realized the urgent need to diversify trade relationships and safeguard national interests. The experience spurred a wave of strategic planning and innovation across the country. Against this backdrop, bold new initiatives emerged, like the landmark Yuan ship deal between China and Canada. This agreement signaled a willingness to explore fresh partnerships and rethink old alliances in pursuit of economic stability. Trade disputes had evolved far beyond simple tariff battles. They now encompassed currency strategies, questions of power, and the drive for true economic independence. The world was entering a new era, one where every move on the global chessboard could have far-reaching consequences. De-dollarization refers to the process where countries intentionally reduce their reliance on the US dollar for international trade, financial transactions, and as a reserve currency. This shift is not just about changing the currency used in trade. It's about reshaping the global financial landscape and rethinking how nations interact economically. For decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed king of global finance. Most international transactions, from oil deals to major imports and exports, were settled in dollars. Central banks around the world held vast reserves of US dollars, reinforcing its dominance and making it the backbone of the global economy. However, as the US began using its financial power to impose sanctions and influence global affairs, many countries started to see a risk in being so dependent on the dollar. The threat of having assets frozen or being cut off from the dollar-based system made nations reconsider their strategies. By trading in other currencies, such as the euro, the Chinese yuan, or even local currencies, countries can gain more economic independence. This approach helps them avoid the direct impact of US policy decisions and gives them greater control over their own financial systems. The growing economic power of China and the European Union has provided real alternatives to the dollar. Their currencies are increasingly being used in trade agreements, investment deals, and as part of central bank reserves. Still, de-dollarization is a gradual and complex process. It doesn't happen overnight. Shifting away from a currency that has been so deeply embedded in the global system takes time, careful planning, and international cooperation. The US dollar continues to offer significant advantages. Its stability, deep liquidity, and the trust it commands worldwide make it hard to replace. Many countries still see it as a safe haven during times of crisis. Yet, moves like Canada's recent trade deal using the Chinese yuan are important milestones. They signal a willingness among nations to experiment with alternatives and gradually shift the balance of global finance. Even close US allies are now exploring the benefits of diversifying their currency reserves and trade settlements. This trend reflects a broader desire for flexibility and resilience in an unpredictable world. Over time, these changes could lead to a more balanced and multipolar global monetary system, where no single currency dominates as completely as the dollar once did. The world is watching these developments closely and adjusting strategies for a new era in global finance. Canada's choice to use the yuan was both practical and strategic. Facing U.S. tariffs, Canada needed to show it had options beyond the American financial system. Paying in yuan cut out costly currency conversions and simplified trade with China. It also sent a message: Canada is ready to adapt to a multipolar economy and assert its independence. The move aligned with the global trend of de-dollarization, chipping away at the dollar's exclusive dominance. For the U.S., this was a warning. Friends as well as rivals are seeking alternatives. Canada's decision could inspire others to follow suit. The yuan deal was a small step, but a significant one. It showed that economic pragmatism is reshaping global finance. China has long aimed to make the yuan a global currency. The Canadian ship deal was a breakthrough, a G7 nation choosing yuan for a major transaction. This boosted the yuan's credibility and signaled China's growing financial power. China has promoted the yuan through currency swaps and its Belt and Road Initiative, but this Western endorsement was different. The timing was key. China was weathering U.S. tariffs and needed to show strength. Deals like this help build trust and liquidity for the yuan worldwide. China's goal: a global financial system less centered on the U.S. The yuan still has a long way to go, but each deal is a step forward. The world is watching as China's currency rises. The Canada-China ship deal sent shockwaves through the global economy. For the U.S., it was a warning. The dollar's exorbitant privilege isn't guaranteed. If more countries follow Canada's lead, U.S. financial influence could wane. For other nations, the deal was proof that economic independence is possible without breaking from the West. It encouraged countries to explore new currency arrangements and diversify trade. Multinational businesses, too, must adapt to a world where multiple currencies matter. Currency diversification is becoming a necessity, not just an option. The deal marks a shift toward a more multipolar economic order. The dollar isn't collapsing, but alternatives are rising. The rules of global finance are being rewritten. The Canada-China ship deal is a signpost for the future of global trade. It highlights the shift toward economic diversification and away from dollar dominance. More countries will likely follow, especially those with strong China ties. As China builds the infrastructure for yuan-based trade, de-dollarization will accelerate, not as a threat, but as evolution. The U.S. must adapt, focusing on its core strengths to maintain influence. Aggressive trade policies risk pushing allies toward alternatives. The world is moving toward a balanced system with several major currencies. The ship deal marks the start of a new, more multipolar era in global finance.